Reincarnated, I was stargazing. Life goes on, I need her, my babies. Woke up looking for the broccoli. High key, keep a horn on me. That could my seat. IP ownership, the blueprint is by me.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the PBL Primetime. It's season 3. You guys just won't let me die. You keep me coming back. I wish I could just, be another member of the group, but I keep winning. I keep drafting terribly from what Winston says and, in-game managing my way to the championship 3 years in a row. So it is what it is. Your humble commissioner, as always, three-peat commissioner, and my faithful pod bro, Brent Lias. Brent, how you doing over there, bud?
I'm good. Just got back home from a mini vacation. I had to do the draft remote this year. It was a little different. Probably a good thing for how much hate was coming my way, but then again, I'm not surprised by that. Got a lot of hate last year.
There was a lot of good commentary during the draft. There were just a lot of crazy things that were happening before we started drafting. Like just Fooley's house it was like absolute chaos in a good way or like a bad way. I don't know, depending on who you are. But there was a lot of random shit happening at the live draft. So maybe you guys dodged a bullet not being there. But it's always nice to have everybody in the same room, and hopefully we get back to that sooner than later. But we'll go. This is our week 1 picks, so we're back. We're back in the wagon here. A couple of new things that we have. We have new divisional matchups this year. So Brent and I are now actually in the same division. Winston,
Like that.
Winston and Reed tried to take the easy way out to get onto a side with Los.
Oh, they definitely did. Running from the grind.
They were running from the grind for sure. They were high-fiving each other whenever we made the divisional announcements there. Running from the grind for sure. But now me and Brent are just in the stronger division as it is. You got Ryan in there, Santi in there, John in there as well. Or actually, you know what?
I think Cooley's still in it.
Hooley's still in that one. That's right. Yeah, that's right. We still got Hooley in that one. Yeah, so we got the strong division there still. But new divisions means new matchups, so we have some new rivalries through the week. In the past, Brent and I would only play once. Now we're going to have a couple times this year, so it'll be fun. Pod worse. We had our hater draft review already before week 1. The boys said some mighty contradicting stuff, but like Santi said, it was all vibes and hate there, so they're kind of just flowing along. I was just watching because Elena and Mira were there, and we love them both, and that's really what the video was all about. But we'll go ahead and hit our week 1 here. We'll jump right in. And of course, we're going to start with the pod Civil War. It's going to be Brent versus myself. Brent, what you thinking?
All right, so the hater pod kind of covered the draft grades. I'm just going to quickly go over everybody's kind of yearly projection on where I think they're going to finish based off their team. So I'm going to start with your team. I've got you going 9-5 this year. I think it's a well-rounded team. You went wide receiver heavy. You mixed in some solid running backs there with Kamara, Ken Walker. I was surprised Walker was there in the 5th round, like I told you before the draft. Didn't think it was going to happen, but it ended up going on. Jefferson may be the surprise pick in the 1st round. I don't think people expected that to happen. We'll see how Sam Darnold goes. I mean, but it may not matter if Darnold sucks as long as Jettas is getting the 30-35 target share. Looking over your lineup, I think the weakest link is your tight end with Brock Bowers. I'll be curious to see how the rookie goes. Normally, rookie tight ends don't do good. Last year kind of bucked that trend with Sam Laporta finishing as the tight end number 1. And then on my side of the draft, we kind of touched on this, in the chat. If everything kind of hits, I can see myself going 11-3 again. If, I'm 50-50 on it, it's a 7-7 maybe season. If I completely miss, we're talking a Sacco appearance like my Russell Wilson year, so I'm really banging on some year 2, year 3 come ups. So we'll see if that happens. I did go get the Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown stack. I tried really hard last year to get that. Fun fact, if Carlos had taken that Rage trade I offered him at the start of the year, he would not have been Sacco. So, just hindsight 2020 there. This year, I think the Eagles are going to be a little bit better, making the offensive coordinator switch a little bit more pre-motion snap. And I think Brown will really benefit from that. I did go 0 RB in the draft. The hater pod really focused on that. It was not intended. It's just kind of how the draft fell. The running backs I liked early didn't fall my way, so I pushed the position down. Hoping Javante has that year two post ACL breakout. Raheem Mostert was RB2 last year. If I get 70% of that, we're looking at RB18. I'm cool with that. I'm attacking the ambiguous backfields, Denver and Tennessee. It's 50-50 shot Pollard or Spears. Santi said it's all vibes. He doesn't care about PFF grades. But fun fact, Tony Pollard was the PFF #1 rusher from week 10 to finish the year last year. So I'm hoping that carries over to this year. Now, for our weekly matchup, though, I am always off to a slow start. I think I've lost maybe 7 or 8 week ones while this league has been in effect. Um, so I'm gonna think that trend continues. I'm gonna take Josh over myself this week.
Yeah, I think you're a late bloomer, which
Yeah.
works out for me. Obviously, being here in week one, the matchup. I wish you could have heard the reactions whenever you selected a third quarterback in the draft so
I'm
early.
gonna be honest right here. I considered going Richardson at 10. That was a part of the original strategy. So getting him there on that 3-4 turn, I couldn't pass it up.
Yeah, it was great, and again, the whole room just did a collective "What the fuck?" It was hilarious. Literally everyone. It was hilarious. But for me, just looking at the matchups, of course, we're going to get to see the stack right off the bat Friday night versus the Packers. Now the
Yeah.
Packers are going to beat the Eagles either way, so it doesn't matter. But we're going to see if Jalen's going to get the AJ Brown train rolling early, or with their new offensive scheme, if Devonta Smith is going to be schemed open a little bit more from the slot, which is kind of where I believe he's going to start playing a little bit more out of.
Yep.
Which is what I'm anticipating, some more slot targets as he's going along. But we're going to see right off the bat Friday night how that's going to work out for you. And then, of course, on my side, we're going to see the old men of the group, Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford, rolling a little bit later in the week, which I like, even though they're playing some tougher defenses in Detroit and San Francisco, of course. I'll at least know what I have to do by the time we get to the Monday night games, which will be nice. I like both of our drafts, obviously. You got the strong quarterbacks. I
Yep.
do think you will have a headache from week to week trying to figure out which one you want to play.
I think that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, but that's a good problem to have. That's okay. I'm going to go with myself this week. Like Brent said, a little bit of a slow starter, but I'm going to kick off this campaign with a win. But then I would hope that I lose more as we go along because, again, I don't know. All right, so we're both going to go with myself on that one. So we'll roll right into the next one. We got Winston versus Ryan. So we got our 2-time champion versus our other 3-time champion. Both still had solid drafts as well, I believe. Brent, what do you think?
All right, so I'm going to start with Ryan on this one since he's projected higher. He did go Mahomes kind of early. Mahomes didn't go third overall like last year, but he still had a pretty high value pick. Ryan really focused on the wide receivers as well. He went Jamar Chase round 1. He might be sweating that a little bit right now with Jamar's contract issues. So even if Jamar plays, he may not be conditioned and in football shape. So that might hurt Ryan to start the season. Deebo Samuel, I had him high on my draft board if I got traded, but that did not happen. But I still think Ryan got a pretty good value on Deebo during the draft. Looking at his other positions, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper in the flex, that's a good flex spot. I am questionable on Evan Ingram personally. I think he did as well as he did last year because of the Christian Kirk injury there in the middle of the season. And then Calvin Ridley was basically a boomer bust wide receiver. So I think that played into it. I'm a little nervous about Rachaad White just on the usage and rookie Bucky Irving being there. So if everything goes right for Ryan, I'm looking at an 8-6 season. If some of those things break the wrong way, we're maybe looking at a 6-8, maybe hoping to sneak into the playoffs like Reed last year. It's going to be an uphill battle. Now, granted, if the Cowboys keep throwing the ball, then that Dak Prescott with Mahomes quarterback room will be pretty good and probably carry him a little bit this season. Looking at Winston's lineup, he basically did the same thing as he did last year, focus on the skill position players, kind of let the draft fall to him and grab the value at quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, rookie sensation. I have him on my dynasty team, so obviously I'm a big believer. Trevor Lawrence, I think he's gotten a bad rep just based off of his history. That first season doesn't count, and that kind of throws out his historical data. When he was healthy on his second year, he was really good. Last year, he was banged up a little bit. His wide receivers were banged up a little bit, and I think that kind of played into the rough season. From an analytics standpoint, though, the Jaguars threw the ball top 3 in the NFL, and they, I think, had 17 dropped touchdown passes between last year in the playoffs.
Half of them,
Um,
probably.
yeah, and most of those were Calvin Ridley, and he's gone. And they did replace him with Ryan Thomas, who scored 17 touchdowns his senior year. So we're thinking that's going to, kind of correct itself. I am concerned about Winston's running back rooms. He's confident in it with Bijan, but I'm a little concerned with Kyron. The report came out that he's going to be the punt returner for the Rams. So that's going to be, that is now the most dangerous play in football. So, that could be a concussion. It could be, an ACL injury. Someone goes low. So I don't think that's as solid as he thinks it is. His wide receiver room is kind of shaky as well. Devontae Adams was the best wide receiver in the league. He's not anymore. The man is 32. And he's got Gardner Minshew as his quarterback. As serviceable as Minshew is, it's not going to be pretty this year. I do like Malik Neighbors, and he's got that stack with Daniel Jones on the bench. We'll see how that goes. Are we going to get Daniel Jones 2022 QB8? Or are we going to get Daniel Jones 2023 with a broken neck? We don't know. So I actually have Winston sneaking in just at 9-5 just from in-season moves. Winston does get some trades done during the year that tend to go in his favor. So I think he pulls off 2, maybe even 3 of those. And he really changes his team. Looking at this first week, I'm actually going to go with Winston, even though he's not projected to win. I do think that Bijan just carries this week and goes for like 35.
Yeah, I honestly, I was thinking about Bijan there at the 3, like Winston had suggested, but
Wouldn't have blamed you. That was his ADP.
yeah, and I went right back to old faithful Justin Jefferson. I do like Winston's running back room. Obviously, I'm a big Kyron fan.
Yep.
Shout out to my guy. Helped me win the championship last year. I mean, I think the punt return stuff is a little overblown. He did do that for the first few weeks of last year, but then they
He did.
started to a full-time role. So he really kind of got away from that as he went through the season, which I assume they'll do through this season as well. But of course, the big question on Winston's team is Kyle Pitts. And
Yeah.
Winston's team wins and loses off of Kyle Pitts for the most part, which I think, I mean, I was literally going to pick Kyle Pitts as well, the following pick after Winston had picked him. So I would have been in that same boat, if he didn't already grab him. So thank you, Winston, for taking that off of my plate. I love Patrick Mahomes this year for Ryan. I did contemplate going super early for quarterback as well, but then when the run started, I just started grabbing the positions and decided to kick it back a little bit farther. I think, of course, Dak Prescott's still going to be playing for a contract, whether it's either in Dallas or if he's playing to be the quarterback somewhere else, the Raiders, wherever it might be next year. He's still got to put up some good numbers to make sure he gets his money. Jamar Chase is a huge question mark there, of course, for Ryan, with the contract disputes and him wanting like what $1 more or 1 more cent than Justin
More
Jefferson.
cent than Jettas.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he's worth that, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get that done. Who knows?
And he's got 2 years left on his rookie deal too. It's not like it's 1 more and then he's pushing for it.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is to renegotiate there in that time frame. But at the end of the day, for the Bengals, it's going to be cheaper now than it is later. So maybe they do get something done. If they wait for 2 years, they'll be spending a lot more on him for sure. If he rides out the rest of that contract. I like both the draft from the boys. I will go with Winston in this one. I think there's definitely some upside there to Caleb. I think he's going to be. I was also going to pick him at quarterback, sometime later in the draft as well. I think he's got a really good supporting cast with Rome and Keenan Allen and the backfield there, a little bit upgraded offensive line as well. So he should be kind of pulling through for Winston through the year as a good starter. So I'm going to go with Winston this week over Ryan, and we agree on that one. So we'll roll to the next one. We got Lou versus Los, and of course our beloved Sacco Los, terrible at karaoke. He just did not know what song was going on in the first place, even though we told him. But and again, Brent, we appreciate your dedication to your karaoke and your craft, um, because there is very little on Los's part for karaoke. But what do you think about the matchup?
All right, so I'm gonna start with our current Sacco, Carlos. He did finally do a decent football strategy and stacked Tua and Tyreek. That will pay dividends, I think, early on in the season. Tua always starts hot.
Yeah.
So I think that trend will continue. And the Dolphins game this week has the highest over under. So you could really see a Tua Tyreek 40-point game each, and that could carry Carlos to a victory. He did pick up Kirk Cousins as a second quarterback, 36 coming off an Achilles injury. We're not quite sure how that's going to heal. And he's also switching into a new offense leaving Minnesota. So there is some risk there. Carlos did follow up, though, in round 2 after Tyreek with my favorite running back in the league, Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm a big Gibbs believer. Gibbs was in play for that 1-2 turn pick for me as well. It just, I felt it was better strategy going with the stacks. Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. Historically speaking, running backs at his age don't play well on new teams. I think that they see like a 3 or 4 point drop off from their previous seasons. But then again, Derrick Henry is the abominable snowman. He is, the outlier to all those running backs. So if there's someone to buck that trend, it's going to be Derrick Henry. And the way I look at it, Gus Edwards scored 13 touchdowns last year, and even old man Henry is better than Gus Edwards. So it's not eligible.
In the 20, and I wouldn't blink an eye.
Yeah, no, I'm almost expecting a touchdown per game for Derrick Henry. And then his other skill players, he's got Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. That's kind of questionable having 2 receivers on the same team, even though they're different positions. You kind of hoped Ayuk was going to get traded. So I'm concerned about that value unless, Debo or CMC misses some time. I don't think either of those guys will see their true potential. And then he did go a little bit older. Joe Mixon, Keenan Allen. I've got some question marks on both of them as well. Both of them switch teams and they're higher up in age as well. So, it's kind of the same point to the Derrick Henry. If everything goes right for Carlos, all his players hit, you're looking at 10 and 14. If he misses out, loses interests, doesn't manage his team like, he has in the past, you're looking at 4 and 10. So, you're on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Then we're looking at Lou's team. Very questionable. Lou was the first person in the league to ever take a quarterback in the first round. Aaron Rodgers, broken collarbone year. Shout out Lou.
Love that.
He hasn't done it since until this year. He went, Lamar and Josh Allen on that 9 and 202 turn. So Lamar in the first round was a little bit surprising. I kind of thought that'd be Josh Allen. I'd be curious to know what the rationale was there. Running backs, James Cook. I think Cook will be good. I think he's undervalued. I don't think the Bills used him properly until the end of last season. I'm worried about Zamir White just based off of his role. He's playing into the second or third quarter of preseason games. That's not good for a starter. Chris Olave, Zay Flowers, you're talking young wide receivers, some question marks for each. Chris Olave has got their car holding them back. Zay Flowers, was he good because Mark Andrews was out, or is he actually good? We don't know. That's a risky pick. It could work out, could not work out. My favorite pick of Lou's draft, Jake Ferguson. I was going to take Fergie as a late round tight end. I love Ferguson this year. I think he's got some positive touchdown regression from last year, and we saw what the ceiling is in that wild card game where he scored 3 touchdowns versus the Packers. Just absolutely demolished them. I'm sorry, Josh. And then the follow-up, Rashee Rice, Deontay Johnson. If Rice doesn't get suspended this year, that's some really good PPR value plays. So I've got Lou sneaking in at 10-4, possibly 11-3 if everything goes right for him. I wouldn't be surprised, if all that happens. Looking at the week one matchups, I'm gonna go Lou just for the fact that he's playing Carlos.
Yeah, Lou definitely Lou surprised us for sure with the Lamar Jackson pick in the first round. Now,
Yep.
of course, he's QB heavy, so he's got two of the who should probably be the top 3 or 4 QBs in the league once it's all said and done. So he's really going to be driven off of those QBs going through the year. I love James Cook, of course. Rashee Rice was probably my favorite pick on his team. I thought
Mhm.
we talked about this. I thought a lot about getting Rashee Rice a lot earlier as well, just because he's going to be Patrick Mahomes' favorite target this year, in my opinion.
He had a preseason target percentage of 33%. That's astronomical.
Pretty much every shot that Patrick Mahomes had in the preseason was Rashee Rice. So, definitely could be a huge play there. Of course, he's got some legal stuff going on that could be ironed out towards the end of the year into next year, but that's a gamble. And, he could end up being, a top 12 wide receiver, a top 10 wide receiver going through the end of the year just because he's playing with Patrick Mahomes. For Los, of course, Tyreek Hill is always a good pick. You can't really go wrong there.
Yep.
I love the Gibbs and Henry high T running back stack there. Again, I think Derrick Henry is still going to get that, 18 to 20 touchdowns this year easy if Gus Edwards is able to do it. Derrick Henry can certainly replicate that. Kirk Cousins, he's got a great supporting cast. So I think either way, I mean, he could throw a screen pass to Bijan Robinson, and that's a 70-yard touchdown, So there's definitely some pop there for both Tua and for Kirk,
Yep.
even though it might not be the most steady quarterbacks. I we were also a little flabbergasted at the Ayuk and Kittle pairing. But that's one of those things where Ayuk could be super steady and then Kittle can have his boom games and help win weeks, whatever it might be. For this one, I am gonna side with Los, just because there's a little bit more unknowns there on Lou's side to me. But there are some commodities there on Los's side that I think could perform in week one right off the bat, especially with Tyreek and Tua going. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Los on that one. Next matchup we have will be Hooli and John. Another big little matchup. What do you think?
Hooley's draft is like going to a soul food place and just ordering all the comfort food. The man drafts players that he had in previous years and that he's comfortable with. Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield. I think he even reached on that a little bit. I wasn't surprised. Adam Thielen in the 10th round was the what the fuck moment for me. I saw that and I was like, that's for sure Hooley's team. I didn't even have to look at who picked Adam Thielen. As soon as I saw Thielen drafted, Hooley, boom.
He's got Zeke. He just loves his guys.
He has Zeke. He's got Jacoby Myers. Taysom Hill. He's had all these guys before. He's going with familiarity. Can't blame him. The last couple years, it's worked out. He's been top 3, 4 team entering the postseason. Granted his teams have fizzled out. During that round one matchup, but he's been in it recently. I do like the Brock Purdy pick. I think Purdy will be good this year, especially now that Trent Williams just signed today. I was a little concerned about, kind of Purdy's efficiency numbers without Trent Williams and also Ayuk, but I think that's, those concerns are gone. And then Saquon Barkley, James Conner, great running back room. Maybe a little bit injury prone, some injury history. I would have preferred if Hooley maybe had taken like a Trey Benson as well, just to back up James Conner. I thought that would have been a good strategy. CeeDee Lamb fell in the draft. I was sitting there crossing off the ADP sheet that we use, and I was like, man, there's no way CD falls this far. And then Hooley took like a minute to pick him.
That was a big one. Yeah.
So just looking at his team, he's got some high quality names. I'm gonna say his record 8-8 this year, or I'm sorry, not 8-8, 7-7 this year. I think it's a 500 team. If everything breaks right, maybe you're looking 9-5. John's team, I like what he did this year, focusing on position plays instead of quarterbacks, and he kind of let the quarterbacks fall to him. Burrow, Daniels, Breece Hall. You can't go wrong taking Breece Hall. I do like the Pacheco pick as well. I think he's undervalued. A little concerned about Puka's injury coming into the year, but if 1A, 1B for the Rams, Cup Woods, it could, it's now going to be Cup and Puka. So for John, I actually have him with the best record at 11-3. I think it's going to be hard to mess that up. And I think John starts off strong this week one with a victory as well.
Yeah, Hooley's got the steady team. You know, he's always CD Lamb was probably the biggest drop in the
Yeah.
draft for us for sure. So he's going to reap the benefits of that. I'm looking forward to seeing what Saquon can do with an actual offensive line. So that could be that could be the RB1 of the season if everything goes correctly there in Philly. But I love Jaden Daniels. I love Brees Hall. I love Joe Burrow. The Nico Collins pick over, the fact that Stephon Diggs was picked up before Nico Collins was a little
Yeah.
confusing to me, but I think we go 50-50 on that in the league. But I'm a Nico guy myself. I am going to go with John on this one as well, just because I love that X factor that Jaden Daniels and Brees Hall bring to this week. And then last, we'll go with our game of the week. Of course, both of these guys will be very excited that they are the game of the week. It'll be Santi versus Reed. What do you
All
think?
right, so I'm going to start with Reed. You know, he just missed the playoffs last year, and I think that happens again this year, unfortunately. He's very boomer bust with his picks. Stroud, everyone's thinking he's going to be the next Peyton Manning, throwing for 4,500 yards, 40 touchdowns. Jared Goff, I do think will have a good year. The man loves playing in the dome, and he only has 3 outside games. Now, granted, 2 of those games are the second round of the playoffs and the championship week, so that's a little questionable. But you just have to make the dance to have a shot. So I think Goff will put Reed in position to get there. Jonathan Taylor, I've got some concerns just with Anthony Richardson playing. I think they played a total of 6 snaps together last year, so it's a very small sample size. Devon A-Chain, I was going to take him 5 picks after where Reed grabbed him. I was like, there's no way A-Chain falls to me here. Granted, he didn't, but I was like, that's going to be my RB1. He's RB2 for Reed, which is a great spot for him. And then he went with the machine Amon-Ra, very consistent. Man puts up 20 points a game. And then he's got T. Higgins and Godwin, I think will do great this year. I've got Reed 9-5, maybe. If things don't go right, you're looking at maybe 6-8, and just barely missing the playoffs. Santi's team, he loves drafting and just talking up his team so much. It's hard to miss with McCaffrey at 101. We'll see if the Madden curse plays any factor into that. Then he went young, ETN, Marvin Harrison. Pittman is still young. Drake London, hasn't done much so far, but with the quarterback play of Kirk Cousins, people are hopeful. So just kind of with the youth on Santi's team, I think he'll get off to a slower start. I've got him going 7-7 as well and taking a loss this week.
Yeah, Santi's another one who he kind of grabs his guys just like Hooley did in the draft. Pittman, London, Pickens, those are all guys that I didn't even have to look at who was drafting. Whenever they came off the board, I was like, all right, those are Santi's guys. Of course, CMC, which I just took CMC in our league that we just drafted here at the 3rd spot. So that was, to me, a steal. But CMC at number 1, still the best player in the league. As long as he's healthy, he'll still produce and be the best running back. But of course, I love Jordan Love. I'm not crazy about Herbert this year just because of the lack of weapons around him, but still a good tandem to have. Reed, Reed drafted well. Again, it's all about Reed staying in it as he goes through the year. T. Higgins, you could have the wide receiver 1 for the Bengals. Amon-Ra is just as steady as they come. And then, of course, Jared Goff and C.J. Stroud's a good, QB tandem to have as well. For this week, I am going to go with Reed. Just along those same reasons that you had. I think Santi's team is going to pick up a little bit closer to the middle of the season. And of course, the Jared Goff stat you dropped was my favorite kicker stat for Jake Bates, the best kicker in the league now. He's going to be kicking in a dome for 13 weeks. So I'm going to score a ton of kicker points, and I know you hate to hear that.
Change kicker scoring.
Yes, but we're both going to go with Reed as well. All right, cool. So that's all the matchups there. So Brent, run us through our final picks.
All right. So in Josh versus Brent, we're both going Josh. Ryan versus Winston, we're going with the hater himself, Winston. Lou versus Carlos, we're split. You're going with I don't like pancakes, Carlos. I'm going with Lou. Hooley versus John, we're going with John. Living life well up in New Hampshire. And then in our game of the week, Santi versus Reed, we've got Santi off to a slow start and Reed taking the dub.
Excellent. Of course, it's all speculation right now until we get into some actual football. Really excited that we have a really good Thursday and a really good Friday night game coming up. Ravens, Chiefs, Packers, and Eagles, of course. So I'm just happy to be back to football. And it's just, it's what we wait for all year to get back into the draft, get back into the football season, where we're watching the NFL or, college football, whatever it is throughout the weekend as well. It's just a better time of year to be back. But any last words for the boys there, Brent? Any last words for the Hater Pod draft review? Anything?
No vibes, analytics matter.
This is the analytics podcast. We don't do vibes. We're all about the numbers. But thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to now season 3 of the PBL Primetime. I really wasn't expecting to drag this into season 3, but me and Brent love to be here either way. Probably do a season 4. Who knows? You guys need to get better at fantasy football, and we'll figure that out later. But I hope everyone has a great week, and let's enjoy some football. And we'll catch you guys for week 3. Who's our week 2?
Week 3.
Yeah, who's on for week 2? Who was the first one up? I didn't even look.
We were doing what the order we finished, right? So it'd be Winston.
No, it's the backwards order. So it would have been
backwards order. So John, maybe Cooley. I'm not sure.
We'll figure that out. We're not worried about those other podcasts.
Oh well. We're just focused on week 1.
Exactly. We'll see you guys back in week 3. We'll have our takeover pod next week, so we'll see what they bring to the table, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Woke up looking for the broccoli. High key, keep a horn on me. That come my seat. IP ownership, the blueprint is by me.